so good. I'm feeling sleepy and energized in the same time. Yeah, welcome everybody to this very, very special performance. Because throughout history, theater has constantly embraced the cutting-edge technologies to weave its tales and connect with audiences from all over the world. From the revolutionary printing press to the expanse of the internet, theater has always adapted and evolved alongside these emergent technologies. And for more than a decade, the Royal Shakespeare Company has been at the forefront of this exploration. Delving into the future of performance, exploring how these new tools and new technologies reshape the artistic landscape. So today, the members of the Royal Shakespeare Company are here to present a truly unique theater experience, specially crafted for Mozfest this year. It's a glimpse into the future of theater, where innovation meets tradition and where the stage knows no boundaries. So here to tell you a bit more about this project is Sarah Ellis, Director of Digital Development at the Royal Shakespeare Company. Give it up for Sarah.
Hello, thank you so much for having us and for us to be here. It's an absolute pleasure to be welcomed into this space and to be part of your community. The introduction was absolutely perfect, and thank you, because it's sort of what we want to say is, why would a Shakespeare company be so engaged in technology and thinking about these 21st century tools that are coming into our world with a 400-year-old playwright? But it's quite right that technologies and tools have moved the form of storytelling on, but actually we work with some of the best storytelling technology, which is the actor. And in this moment that we are in, and in this age we are in, stories and theatre and ritual seem to be so important in how we define and look at our futures. No one person makes a piece of theatre. You see today, I will not be standing on my own on stage. We are all together. So we'd like to share with you a demo that we would have put together for today that has been a culmination of the last 10 years of work around real-time motion capture, putting digital avatars on our stages, performing with live avatars, and also performing in people's homes and looking at virtual worlds connecting with live worlds. It's a massive exploration for us in this moment, and Maggie Bain will be performing a speech today directed by Gemma Farley, who you met in your warm-up earlier. We also have Dan Orchard that will be running our real-time Unreal Engine for that today. Politics and the world and technology are completely intertwined, and it's important to also reflect back that the usefulness of having a playwright who's 400 years old reminds us of some of these things aren't new challenges. They're very live and they're very now, but actually society has always looked at the world, and theatre has allowed us to look at the world through many people's lenses and viewpoints. The speech that Maggie will perform today is deliberately chosen for this audience and this crowd for us to think about that. The play, Sir Thomas More, has a contentious authorship at its heart, potentially written by at least 5 writers, Shakespeare being one of them, and his contribution just a few pages of rewrites, of which the speech that Maggie performed, The Stranger's Case, is part of it. Collaboration was a part of Shakespeare's world, globalization was a part of Shakespeare's world, and this play in particular, and why we've chosen this speech, is a dramatic biography of Sir Thomas More, who was Lord Chancellor of England during Henry VIII's reign. The speech Maggie is about to deliver is More facing down a mob of rioters in May 1517, intent on attacking and murdering foreigners in London, who they referred to as strangers. Xenophobia was rife in London at this time, as people wrongly believed immigrants were dominating trades and taking the jobs of locals. The May Day riots quelled by More's intervention, but the damage in the trust between immigrants and native Londoners had already been done. We'd like to share this performance with you today, and hope that you can hold the experimentation of the technology, but also the politics and the world that we live in. And we're delighted to be part of this community and want to meet and get to know you better. Thank you.
grant that this, your noise, hath chid down all the majesty of England. Imagine that you see the wretched strangers, with their babies at their backs and their poor luggage, plodding to the ports and coasts for transportation, and that you sit as kings in your desires. Authority, quite silent by your brawl, and you, in ruff of your opinions clothed, what had you got? I'll tell you. You had taught how insolence and strong hands should prevail, how order should be quelled. And by this pattern, not one of you should live an aged man. For other ruffians, as their fancies wrought, with self-same hand, self-reason, and self-right, would shark on you. And men, like ravenous fishes, would feed on one another. Oh, desperate as you are, wash your foul minds with tears. And these same hands that you, like rebels, lift against the peace, lift up for peace. Tell me but this. You'd put down strangers. Kill them. Cut their throats. Possess their houses. Well, say now the king should banish you. Whither would you go? What nation, by the nature of your error, should grant you harbour? Or go you to France? Or Flanders? Or to any German province? To Spain? Or Portugal? Or nay, anywhere that not adheres to England, why you must needs be strangers. Would you be pleased to find a nation of such barbarous temper that breaking out in hideous violence would not afford you an abode on earth? Whet their detested knives against your throats, spurn you like dogs, and like as if that God owed not nor made not you. What would you think to be thus used? This is the stranger's case. And this, your mountainish inhumanity. Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Maggie Bain. I'm a multidisciplinary creative. I work as an actor, a director, and a movement director, movement practitioner, focusing on how we bring physicality and movement into the language of live theatre and performance. And for the past few years, I've been working as a creative consultant to the Royal Shakespeare Company as we interrogate how to bring these immersive technologies into live theatre. And as Sarah mentioned, I have been directed in this piece by Gemma Fairley, who's going to join me up on stage.
Thanks. Thanks very much. Hello, thank you. Hello, I will probably wander a lot. I'm Gemma, and I am a director and choreographer, and I've worked on and off with the RSC since about 2004. And I'm now, as a physical theatre director, starting to really move into motion capture, because it's fascinating in terms of what can be achieved and what's possible within that space physically. So that's us. And you might be wondering why you're here today. It was a brilliant introduction by Sarah, but what are a couple of theatre artists doing, playing with this technology? Well,
so we are looking at what it is to compare the performative aspects of an avatar versus a human being. And normally what you would see is one or the other. You'd either see the avatar or you'd see the live performer on stage. And so today we're sort of putting them side by side so that we can demonstrate some of the really incredible things about this technology. And this is obviously just one form of technology. We're looking at all forms of technology. And what we're finding, whether it's AI, whether it's motion capture, that there is incredible possibility for our industry, but there are also limitations. And those limitations affect us in a great way. We're being put at the heart of this. A lot of this work requires performers. It requires performers to feed AI, or it requires performers to be in the motion capture volume. It runs off of our skill set, but actually the way that the technology is sort of being built is leaving us out of the conversation. And it's stripping us of our skill set. And what we would love is to be part of that conversation.
Yeah. Talk a bit more about what the possibilities are.
So the possibilities for us, it allows us to reach our audiences in different, exciting new ways. It allows us to make access to our work a lot more accessible for those that maybe don't feel that coming to a theatre is for them. It allows us to reach different audiences on a global scale, which is really exciting. And it also allows us to diversify the performers that we can bring into this space to tell these stories. The nature of our industry has placed restrictions on that for various reasons, good and bad. And technology like this allows us to interrogate that. So the potential of who we bring in and how we tell these stories is super exciting. And we as performers haven't really had to take a look at our craft in the way that these technologies demand that we do since the invention of film and recorded sound. So this is a really exciting time for us to just sort of take stock and think about how we do things and why.
Yeah. These new techniques are allowing us new forms of artistic expression. But what we're discovering is that there are gaps that we are trying our hardest to fill. So do you want to talk a little bit about the assumptions that are being made?
Yeah, so I think any great performer makes it look easy. You know, whoever is your favorite actor, if you think about what you probably love about them is that you connect with what it is that they're saying. You're not seeing all the technique and skill that goes into that performance. And I can guarantee you that behind every great performance, as natural as it may seem, there is a tremendous amount of skill and technique being brought to bear. And these technologies cut us off from some of that. And part of the reason for that is that people don't understand what it is and how we do it. And they don't think to come and talk to us about it because it's not transparent. It's not that we hide what we do. It's just that that's not what you see, and it's not necessarily what you would expect. But we have a lot of frameworks and methodologies that I think, particularly for technologists, would be really interesting and could help make the development of some of this technology better.
So we want to just give a couple examples of that. And we're going to start with the breath, because the breath for a performer is vital. And it's also what we've discovered, and there have been various studies on this, vital for the audience as well. The breath of the performer actually changes the audience. The story syncopates an audience's breath. They did a study back in 2017 on Dreamgirls, and they found that the audience their heartbeats started to work together in the audience without knowing that. They'd chosen random people to do this. And then in 2022-23, the University of Bern did another study in live classical music, and they found not only did the heartbeat syncopate, but also the breath and sweating started to all syncopate. So there's this incredible collective, visceral thing that happens in an audience that responds to what the art form and the performers of that art form is doing. So just to demonstrate that, can we have a look at a little bit of the speech from, let's say, Oh, Desperate As You Are, because this has got a big gear shift in it. Yeah, great. I'm getting off the stage.
Do you want to bring anything up on there?
Yes, Dan, hi. Can we please bring in Maggie in the mid-shot? Thank you.
Oh, desperate as you are, wash your foul minds with tears. And these same hands that you, like rebels, lift against the peace, lift up for peace. Well, tell me but this.
And I'm going to stop you there. Thank you. Yeah. They're very good.
Very kind, thank you.
So you can see in the performer the breath that's going on there. But to make the avatar do that same thing, Maggie really has to start to push. And therefore, what we're doing is we're just smacking you with emotion in the face. And what we're not allowing is the audience to come on the journey with us, to invite you in. It all becomes about demonstrating. It all becomes about, look, I'm doing emotion, because you can't see entirely that little nuance that's going on. We talk about this in a Stanislavski way called circles of attention. And there are 3 circles of attention that an actor works within. The number 1 is very much about them. It's internal. Sometimes it's about the past. It really is just here. The second circle is the most useful to us. It's the one-on-one. It's the being able to be in the room with you. Eye contact. Having that sense of going, hello, I'm talking to you. That's the circle that we spend a lot of the time in theatre doing. And then there's the epic circle, when we start to bring in the whole world and we fill an auditorium or stadium, but it becomes about the grand gesture. What we're finding is that we have to be in the grand gesture a lot more, and it's limiting what's possible in terms of the nuance for an actor. Moving on from that, can we start to talk about the body and how that works in space? Dan, please can we see the long shot of Maggie, please? Thank you.
I don't have any hand tracking, so excuse the flappy hands.
Okay, so do you want to talk about bodies and what you've discovered as a performer being in this space?
Yes, of course. So I don't think that this will come as any surprise, but it is an important part of what affects our process as actors. We could choose a variety of different softwares to put this performance into today. So I appreciate that what I'm about to talk about in terms of this could easily be solved by other choices that we could have made. But every time we make a choice, we lose something, because none of these are perfect. With this piece of software, this is my avatar here, which is I'm quite vulnerable stood in front of you, knowing that this is representing me, because I'm a non-binary actor, and I craft my identity quite carefully in a way that makes me feel comfortable as I navigate the world. This avatar does not make me feel so comfortable, as it's dressed pretty much the same as I am, but there's an awful lot about it that is very different in terms of what it accentuates about what it thinks my body might be. This piece of software gave me 3 choices. It actually gave me 6. 3 female body choices and 3 male body choices. And what that does is, as I sit down as a performer, if I actually get to sit down as a performer to decide how I'm going to be represented, which actually I rarely do get to do that. It's rarely part of the process. I tend to walk into a room and they go, ping, this is what you're going to be. And you go, oh, okay. And ping, this is how you're going to do it. Oh, okay. Not really how I would, but that's fine. Okay. I'll make it work because I'm good. But you get thrown out of your process. Already you're vulnerable. You sat down to go, well, whoever looks like that, good for them. I know it's a sort of 3-size fits all, 6-size fits all for the whole world. And maybe it covers a majority of people. Maybe not. But anyone that identifies with this can sit down and start their creative process at the starting point and build from there. I'm down here. I have to try and get to a starting point with a creative technologist, somebody that understands this technology, to get what I might look like to a point where I can actually start to add value to it. And I don't necessarily, because that isn't my skill set, to sit down and do this programming, I don't necessarily have that control, and that work might not happen with me in the room. So again, I hand myself over for other people to make assumptions about what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to look, what my body is going to do, maybe what my voice might sound like if you're sort of harvesting AI information from me. And that is that's a scary place to be, and it affects performance technique immediately. It disconnects me from being able to be truthful, because I'm sort of half in this world of worrying about how this is coming across, whether everything that I'm actually putting into this performance is actually being translated by this avatar. And for the most part, it isn't. And an awful lot of us are feeling this way. It feels like quite an important thing to sort of address.
Yeah. And leading on from that, I want to talk about touch, because that is something that, as performers and theatre artists, is, again, something that can be really vulnerable and something that is absolutely at the heart of our craft. And particularly as we move into a world that allows more for intimacy, coordination, and an understanding of how important touch is, we're discovering again that there isn't the nuance that we'd really, really like.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. So I don't have hand tracking, but even if I did, actually it wouldn't be that dissimilar to what you're about to see now. So as a performer, physicality, hugely important, and we as human beings already, without even necessarily understanding why, you can walk into a room, you can take one look at someone close to you or a stranger and know that they are having the best day ever or that they are not okay. You can hug someone and maybe you haven't clocked it at the moment you saw them, but in being in contact with that person, you can read their emotion. And we as performers, we have skill sets that allow us to put that on stage and show these intimate moments to an audience of thousands. So to take the example, I might just put my hand on Gemma's shoulder and just make contact there. And I can do that in a million different ways. I can gently rest my hand here, and it can be a sort of, we're here together, we're just lightly connected, it's quite supportive. And the exact same gesture, if I just start to apply a little bit of pressure and a little bit of tension in my body, just ever so slightly start to make you uncomfortable, and can start to make you uncomfortable, and it just ripples throughout the whole room. The avatar does not have that sensitivity. Even with the hand tracking, if I was to put it on here, all it does is just say, we're in contact, here I am, I'm touching you. And again, I'd have to really demonstrate. I'd have to put all of my performative attention, if that was a choice I was making, into making sure that that read. And that then cuts me off from being able to do two things at once. Because the reason I'm so interested in physicality as a language is that I can tell you one thing with my voice, I can tell you another thing with my eyes and my breath, and I can tell you something completely different with my body. We as human beings are doing that all the time. Think about going for a job interview and feeling nervous about it, but projecting confidence. This kind of technology, it restricts us from being able to explore and put on stage our full humanity. And I know that is the purpose of this technology, is to replicate human intelligence. But what I don't hear an awful lot of, and I need to go to more talks, and hopefully this is bubbling through it, is how we put human emotion into this as well. Because that's a really important part of our identity. And we, as performers, we know an awful lot about, there's how to reach audiences, there's what's happening to audiences. Studies can be done, and they're very, very important. They can tell you what is happening and how that's happening, but we can teach you how to do it. We might not exactly know exactly what is happening, but we can feel it, and we can put it into that language. But nobody is really coming to talk to us about how we are doing these things. And I think we have a lot of value to add to these conversations.
Yeah. Just to wrap up, at the moment, we're kind of feeling avatars are a bit like first-year drama students. They've got a lot of potential. They're ready to go, and they're excited by it, but they just haven't quite got that depth of training yet. And I suppose what we are here today to say is we'd love to offer that. We want to work with you. We want to be in the room right at the beginning to find the way to communicate with audiences, whatever platform that you're working on. And we want to provide that authenticity that our training and our experience has given us. So please have those conversations with us. Come find us. And we'd really like to get to know you. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much. James, are you joining me? Yeah. I learn so much every time I listen to them talk, and it's really beautiful, so thank you again. I'm Ruthie Doyle, and at the Royal Shakespeare Company, I lead on artists, fellowships, and research. This is my wonderful colleague, James Turnbull, also our incredible, long-suffering producer who puts up with all of us, digital producer. I'm going to figure out how to, I brought up, I've just moved in onto the stage, so let's see if I can get the clicker to work. There we go. I want to put a bell on, first of all, that most of us in our group, there's a lot of people here from the Royal Shakespeare Company, are not touching the tech directly. We might know a little bit of code, but we're definitely not going to be coding anything, with the exception of Daniel Orchard, who's our Unreal developer, and big ups to Dan. Woo! Over in the corner, where he's probably more happy to be. But we do use technology in really robust ways. And we do have to think about those trade-offs like Maggie was referring to. So for example, we might have to choose a software that doesn't prioritize the body but has much more fidelity, much more specificity in the face, that kind of thing. And so having these kinds of conversations are really useful, but I am also sorry to the developers among you who go, but what about this thing? But hopefully we can still have a really relevant conversation. But as we're thinking about kind of what the World Economic Forum is calling the fourth industrial revolution, the next industrial revolution, these kind of technologies that will be changing the way that we experience having a physicality, or blending the biological, the virtual, the digital. How are we thinking about some of the mistakes that we made in past industrial revolutions? I mean, climate change for once, right? What if we had listened to some indigenous wisdom around how are we putting in stopgaps or safety measures? So how are we bringing in a diversity of voices to think about these technologies in a lot of different ways? This is in a very creative way, but also in a way that could be really useful in terms of human experience more generally. But my former colleague and our collaborator, Kamal Sinclair, has a really incredible study called Making a New Reality. You can find it at makinganewreality.org that goes into more depth about that. But what we've got at the Royal Shakespeare Company is an incredible opportunity as an independent research organization. So it's a UK designation, IRO status, that allows us to kind of think more deeply in the R&D process about these kinds of issues specifically. So we do that through thought stewardship, through fellowship and community building. And, we get asked a lot about the future of theater, and people say, oh, well, I'm going to have to put a robot in my play. And maybe you will put a robot in your play, and that would be wonderful. But it's thinking about technology sort of as a kind of stagecraft. Candlelight was a technology that was an incredible stagecraft. And the future of theater, in my opinion, is that it's more hierarchical, less hierarchical, that it's more inclusive, that it's more relevant and responsive to the world around us. So we're bringing people together to build a generous community of thinkers and makers to come together and think about what's the next cultural moment, post-global pandemic, post-racial reckoning, but also what are we doing now? I know these guys have heard me say it a lot, but I kind of don't like the word future because it's very passive. It's always tomorrow. We'll always do that tomorrow. But what are we doing now to take some steps to bring people together to think about it? There's a funny story around a billionaire who says, well, when, the apocalypse comes, how do I keep people from eating my body and stealing all my stuff? And people say, well, maybe you should make some friends. Or people come into prepper communities and they say, well, I'm going to need some weapons and I'm going to need a safe room, and how do I secure my belongings? And people go, what seeds grow in your community? What are your neighbors' names? Who do you know? Who can you rely on? And I think this is really an important moment, that we have a real variety of people around us and we understand what are those beautiful things that each of us has to bring to the table to grow and nurture. You want to talk a little bit more about how we bring folks in to do just that?
Yeah, so I can give some context to the work we do. So we have a strange department at the Royal Shakespeare Company called Digital Development, and our work is to support research and development around new products. So the work you've seen here today is about digital humanism and virtual embodiment, and that's really important for us to get right if we're making products that you might experience remotely from around the world at the same time but online. We're also doing lots of work around object capture. We have an incredible collection of our props and sets and crowns and swords and skulls and all sorts of Shakespearean bits that we want to digitize so we can get that out. And the benefit for that for us is that we can make digital products, but we can also use them in education formats and be a bit more global rather than making you come to Stratford-upon-Avon, although I do recommend it. It's very pretty when it's sunny. So that's our work around sort of body and object and looking at these things. There's an area here of research we're looking at in terms of audience reaction and how we feed that back into all the work that Gemma and Maggie just took us through. And the other side of that is about what do the digital stages look like. So we have a virtual model box, we're calling it, this is our theatre in Stratford, the Royal Shakespeare Theatre. And it is a one-to-one model that we have, and we've spent the last, if you click it, it might do an animation, I think.
Oh.
So we've got a virtual model, and we're using it. The first step is pre-production. So theatre is a huge, quite often our productions involve 200 or 300 people working on them as part of the process. That is sometimes inefficient because it's run by a lot of creative people. So we're looking at these emerging technologies, how we bring that into space to find those efficiencies so we can save our time and our resources for the creative bit of the work, the great bit of the work. But hopefully in the future this becomes a hybrid stage for us and tools in education. So at the very beginning of our process, we've been going for 12 years doing it, but it feels like we're at the beginning again as new technologies emerge. We're so delighted to be here, and I really want to thank the invitation from Mozfest to be here, because the people we want to work with is drastically changing in order to work in these ways. We haven't talked a lot about AI today, but we're really aware of it and we want to find ways to engage with it, and I'd love to have conversations with you about what AI looks like in the world of live performance and artistic craft and 400-year-old stories. So we really welcome those conversations. So I just want to say thank you very much for your attention. And we've got some time for questions. So I'd love to invite... just Sarah. Sarah's coming. Oh, you're allowed on the chair.
Yeah, I'm on the chair.
Welcome back, Sarah.
Yeah, over there.
So thank you very much.
And give them a round of applause, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm so thrilled. I'm absolutely obsessed with mapping the digital body. And I don't remember your name, but thank you for acting. My question is not about the lack, but what you have perceived your avatar is making you feel. Maybe not what we don't do, but what does your digital body do? And if you want to go a little further, just close your eyes and think, like, if you're there, what does it feel?
So, I mean, you're talking about this humanoid avatar right now. I think what it makes me feel is, it's kind of an incredible thing. What I do as a craft is really, as I said, it's very vulnerable to go out on stage and to be emotional and to let the audience see all the stuff that most human beings would, the emotion that they would show in the toilet at work, just in a little box by themselves, or at home with their loved ones, with their friends. And we have to go on stage and do that. And these avatars allow us the potential to send that out, not just to 200 people, 400 people, 1,000 people, no matter how many your theatre can hold, but really out into the world and find its audience. And for people to sort of project a bit of themselves onto it as well, because it isn't you. It's you stepping into a character in a slightly different way. It just feels like setting a bird free a little bit. And it is you. It's like a part of you, a big part of you. But people engage with screens, which is, I guess, how you're experiencing this avatar in so many different ways. And I don't know what that is. So there is an excitement to not knowing what the audience is doing. And it would be about finding ways for that to be fed back to us as performers would be really exciting. To get to talk about what that impact is and how we can weave those impacts and feelings that people are having about that into our performance. Like that knowledge exchange would be really beautiful. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited about having new conversations about how people read it, what people see, what lands with them, what doesn't. So I think, does that answer your question?
Maggie's also been a cobweb, for example,
I have, yeah.
in A Midsummer's
An
Night's Dream.
eyeball, actually.
An eyeball, yeah.
A cobweb with an eyeball?
Yeah.
I don't have a question. I have one small suggestion. So if you, like there were certain artifacts in the avatar, for example, the hand movement, and then, so the University of Southern California, Viterbi School of Engineering, the Department of Creative Technologies, they have, I think, a 360-degree model, and they are creating very high-defined avatars of soldiers and people in real time. And they even created for Obama also. They took the whole model to White House, and it's actually pretty good. So maybe you can, if you want, I can connect you with those people. They're really good.
Absolutely. And there is, this field of emerging technologies around virtual production, and I think what you're talking about there is volumetric capture, so using a photogrammetry system. Those all exist. What we could bring here today is an inertial motion capture suit and a headset with an iPhone, because we came on the train from London. And
we didn't have 30 grand for this demo.
Yeah, so it's about where you invest. But that's absolutely right. And when we're on show, we would put that investment in and put it there. But there is something remarkable about this setup. And although it's quite basic and quite limiting in this environment, there was a show that we presented with a real-time. So the real trick to this technology is about real-time, so not having it baked in the past, it's there with you. And we put a real-time avatar on stage in a production of The Tempest in 2016. That was working with Intel, who invested huge multi-million pounds worth of money and expertise to make it happen. And we can run this now on a gaming laptop with a suitcase with a mocap suit in it. So it's about that we're really interested about that technology becoming more available to artists, which means we can facilitate more research and development here. You're absolutely right. There's plenty of great tech out there that can do it for us, and we can punch up when we're ready. This is about how we learn and how we find the language for it.
That's also about, to your point, the trade-offs that you make, right? In what ways could we use that technology? In what worlds can it live in? How does that go on the road? How do you... It's like, yeah, there's always a tech that could do it on the cutting edge or could do this part of it, but then we couldn't get it here in this moment, or it isn't suitable for that particular use. And so how are we kind of having those conversations with multiple people in the room to figure out how those trade-offs happen, if that makes sense? How do you make the trade-off of money, and who weighs in on the craft piece of it, and how are you thinking about all of those very complex calculations that aren't just about money, or just about, how hard it is to do, or, all of those things are real.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, such an amazing performance. Thank you. In presentation from all of you. For me, it was amazing to see, like you asked in the context of AI. Today we are questioning and looking to the data sets behind what we are generating with AI. So for me, as a metaphor, it was also amazing to be able to see the digital image, but also to see what is actually being captured, and to see how a stunning presentation need to be happening with Maggie to have what we see in the digital twin on this context. And it was such an amazing performance that actually I was not able to take that much attention in the avatar. I was trying to look, but I was so much impressed by the breath and the movements, as you said. But I also see, I work in some projects that are digitizing, for example, historical objects and cultural heritage, a cultural heritage background. But then when we add the human element, like you said, we have layers of the breath, of the voice, of other things that are not being captured. But in AI, we start to talk about to not only capture, but to simulate these things. So how do you feel, also knowing that you're going to evolve in a direction that you're going to see this twin becoming better, but actually not doing what you are doing, but something other, something like a third interpretation that is not yours.
Yeah. I think this is what we're talking about. These are the conversations that we would love to be involved in, because it's one thing to take a scientific report that tells you that these things can be done and what the effect of them are, and technically break down what an actor is doing. But, if we don't just give trainee actors a book and say, great, we'll see you at the showcase. You can't just read this stuff. You have to get up and live it and do it. So it's about, I don't know how much of that practical getting up on your feet and doing it is happening. And maybe it is. And maybe it's just the rooms that I have been in. But a lot of the time, people are, the tech seems to be obsessed with things that look real. They don't necessarily feel real. And people are sort of taking a recording maybe of what I'm doing. It's a bit like working with animators. They'll take a film of what you're doing and they're obsessed with recreating that. But if you recreate that and you drop an aspect of it, if you recreate exactly the movements that I'm doing, but the breath isn't right, that avatar will never replicate what it is that I'm doing. You will never have that effect on your audience. But it might look right, and that's very, very impressive. But it's about what you're trying to do. Are you trying to, there's an awful lot that this AI and this technology is doing to people. And it seems to be pushing an awful lot of buttons in sort of, I'm going to say, for want of a better word, slightly easy ways, like clickbait ways or things like that. And actually, we are way more nuanced and sophisticated than that. And like I say, actors can really, really, really pump you up and then take that away from you in an instant. And we can put all of that into the technology, but it can't do that right now. It can't lead you down a path and then sort of switch it on you in the same way that really brilliant writing can. And I think I've gone off piece. Am I answering your question?
You gave a really incredible example that I thought was really useful for my understanding was around, like you come into the room, you've already been rigged in a certain way, and they don't even necessarily tell you what the output is, like what you are, literally. And that's important information for you and your I don't know if you want to say it better than I am. I'm telling your story, but that you would have made different choices if you know, oh, I'm this thing.
Yes, exactly. Like because there's an awful lot of issues for us around intellectual property at the moment. So a lot of the work that I'll go in and do as a performer, I'm not allowed to see the full script. I might not even be allowed to see the character that I'm playing, and yet I have to walk into a room and play that. Like, how do you do that? I don't know what I look like, so I don't know how my physical body is going to impact the other characters, people in the scene with me, or how then that is going to impact the audience. But it's amazing how widespread that is. Or that I'm getting sent a script the night before I have to go in and meet a brand new team and step into this suit or a suit similar, get calibrated, get rigged, and then perform in front of a whole bunch of creative technologists who are looking at screens, and I'm getting nothing back. We can only do one thing at a time as performers. So we have a rehearsal process that allows us to do something over and over until we forget about it, until it becomes ingrained and in our muscle memory, and then we add the next thing, and then we add the next thing, and then we add the next thing. I have a project that I'm developing at the moment, and we're going through several iterations of R&D at various different institutions. It's an immersive virtual reality project. And every time we finish an R&D, all the organizations are really keen for us to spit it out. And because they're like, great, it looks as good as anything else we're producing or that we've seen. It's good to go. And we're like, it's not good to go. Because the audience are going to come out of that experience going, oh, okay, a lot of work went into that. That was interesting. And off they go to dinner. And maybe they think about some stuff if it's hit home and resonated on certain points, but they're not affected. And we just want to take a bit of time to sit in it and really, really affect people.
So in other words, you're making that third other thing that is this breath kind of algorithm. Yeah. Like, are you talking to a movement director about what does that mean? Or are you talking to, what kind of conversations are being had? Does that make sense?
I think the fear is the more AI, the further away we move from heart. And I think that's what we feel. I don't know if anyone else feels that, but it's all about the brain and not about the heart, and we have to continue to try and find the heart within it.
We've got one more question.
The final question.
Oh my God. It's going to be me. I'm sorry. I have a call. It's really important, 3 minutes. I'm either getting funding or not, so I have to go. Come on. But
we're behind you. We're all rooting for you now.
Hello. Okay. First of all, I have to say we have to talk, so please find me. I have a creative tech studio. We're specializing in custom generation tools and experiences. I was on Broadway. I'm classically trained, and then I became a tech guy to help solve these problems. So thinking about manual technology and things a lot of things that you're saying that sometimes feel Like people are like, oh, that sounds so weird. Like, why are you talking about these things? So the closest is this meme I found, and it's basically like software development, and it's like the work you don't see. And then there's like another one that's like, it's acting or something relative to like very specific to it, and it's like the work you don't see. It's a pyramid, and I was like, yes, that's exactly it, because like in coding you're always looking for errors, and essentially like they're like nuance, so it's something really small but it like changes all of the whole other thing, and it's like a very similar process. So I'm going to stop talking because I could talk at you, but what I would like to hear you talk about is the seat at the table kind of vibe, because I think I mean I've been very lucky. I have a lot of friends done like all kinds of stuff. I've done stuff, so I understand like the existential burning thing, and I think a lot of it is about the like lack of communication, mostly at like the software development and like the creative part, not necessarily like the brand or the marketing or like the biz dev or the whatever. Like there's something really like similar in how those two people communicate in terms of like frameworks and blah 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 blah. So that's like a thing. What does the seat at table look like for you? Maybe like Maggie, and then maybe the producer guy, James, the guy with the money too. James, because I think there's something really interesting about hearing that, because I actually feel like I've been solving a lot of stuff recently, and it's going very well. That's all I'm saying. Like I think I'm helping people understand at that level, and there could be some cool stuff to explore. I'm going to probably leave while you're talking. I'm sorry.
Good luck.
That was just amazing.
Smash it.
Yes.
Come on, get the money. Love that call. So attached to that. Can we just listen in?
Emotional investment is what we're talking about. It's real.
I'm going to talk about
specific.
Sure.
Yeah.
How are you? Oh, I just like basically had someone explain what I'm trying to explain.
I think from a producer point of view, just to answer your point, it's about the investment and to have the time. So Sarah leads our department, has done it for 12 years with great vision and thought leadership. And it's about the way we make theatre is really different. So we've got a really clear line about how we do it. We commission a writer, we go in a room, we do some R&D, then we go into production. And this work takes longer. And it's about that convening that you do to hold technologists. So people who speak many different languages, it's like having 12 people in the room who will come from a different country and speak a different language. So you have to have that time to put them together.
I think for me, having a seat at the table is about being brought into processes a lot earlier, and room being made for what my skill set can bring, but also what I can bring as an actor. Again, like every single actor, we all have skills and techniques. We don't all use exactly the same ones. We use the ones that are most effective for us. Every performance is unique. It's why we can tell the same Shakespeare stories for 400 years, because you know, one actor playing Hamlet is going to do it completely different to somebody else, and you're going to get new stuff out of it. So it's about having space within the development of the tech or the implementation of that tech in a process that gives me a little bit of a chance to make offers to you about how best you can use this through me, integrate me into part of the tech.
People want to skip that part, and think it's not worth the time to learn about each other, but that piece is crucial to your point of people getting antsy.
I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
Give it up for the Royal Shakespeare Company. Yeah, and I think you guys will be here, right? Because I saw there were a few more questions. Yeah. Maybe they can just trick you on the mouth. That's how we say in Dutch. Pull your sleeve. Yeah, with this, we finish our first day of Mozfest sessions here. Woo, woo, woo. Yeah, it was so good, huh? Thank you all for your great energy and for your beautiful attention. Yeah, take a good rest, and I see you guys back here tomorrow, I think, right? Everybody's coming back tomorrow? Okay, enjoy your evening. Bye. Thank you.